Thanks very much, and again, I'm glad to be here. So many points in so little time. I think the Minister is correct that we do need a stable currency, but you have to ask yourself the question, what country is at biggest risk of exiting the euro? And it is, of course, Greece, one of only 3 countries which has actually ratified this treaty. So whether this treaty is ratified or not, the problems inside the eurozone are far greater than that, and the pressures will continue. And they're there because of the continuation of policies of austerity, policies which are now thankfully being questioned in every part of Europe, including on the streets of Frankfurt over the weekend, where you had over 20,000 German citizens again protesting against these policies. And the reason why I'm arguing for a no vote is that this treaty copper fastens and enshrines into law the very policies of austerities which are leading to many of the problems in our economy. And let's deal with the text, not jargon and waffle, let's deal with the text. Article 3 requires a balanced budget provision, which requires us to reduce our structural deficit to 0.5% of GDP. The Department of Finance estimate it will be at 3.7%, by 2015 a gap of 3.2%, which equates to extra cutbacks on taxation of 5.7 billion. Now that's a fact based on the government's figures. Where are those cutbacks going to come from, and where are those tax hikes going to fall on? On the people whose children need SNAs, who are in receipt of social welfare, and so on. And what's that going to do for you, the traders and the businesses who rely on domestic demand? We've had 6 successive years of a fall in domestic demand. The continuation of these policies will only accelerate that. 5 businesses a day, on average, folded last year. Taking money out of people's pockets and crushing domestic demand can only further fuel that. So that is the baseline. And to meet those targets, that is what will be required. And the government side haven't answered that. That's black and white. The other key reason is that it undermines democracy. It's basically saying that we as citizens can elect any government we like, but they must implement these neoliberal and austerity policies. If the government, and if Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, as they seem to, want to implement austerity and want to implement these criteria, grand, off you go, do it, and we'll challenge that, but don't write it into our constitution. We need a different way of looking at things across Europe. Our campaign for a no vote is very much at the heart of growing opposition to austerity in France, in Greece, in the Netherlands, in Italy, and all across Europe, to look at the key issues of reducing the debt burden, the private debt burden that's been foisted on our shoulders, and looking at putting people to work, precisely the policies which will be outlawed if this treaty is ratified, because it requires a speeding up of the repayment of the debt, not a renegotiation. So for those reasons, we think we're far better to be at the heart of Europe.